Maybe you'll be able to relate to this. When you eat too much chocolate, you start to feel sick, even though the chocolate was so delicious, and how could you not eat all of it? Having too much of it became the issue, because if you'd only had a smaller amount, then it probably wouldn't be an issue of the same magnitude. Just like the water that we drink to survive, scientists say that we need like 3 to 4 liters a day, which already seems like too much. But people have also died from drinking too much water, and this particularly is called water intoxication, but there are other symptoms of too much water with different names and effects. But this is besides the point. Too much of anything is really never good for anyone, and that includes the types of behaviors that we exude throughout our daily lives. Like, have you ever met anyone who is always angry or dissatisfied, and you wonder what your and their life would be like if they just lightened up a little? On the flip side, have you ever known anyone, maybe even yourself, and you go about your day not trying to make anyone angry or upset, even if it meant putting yourself into a worse position because of it? Like staying later after work to help out because the team is behind and you feel like you owe them. But it's not even your fault they're behind, and actually, you don't owe them anything. There may be a deeper reason why you might stay later than your shift's end, like to keep a promise or you agreed to stay later. But generally speaking, you don't owe your job anything except for just showing up when you're supposed to and leaving when you're supposed to as well. Let's use the example of a work setting to further illustrate the key differences between a nice guy and a nice guy. Try to imagine you're in this person's scenario, or try to recall a time when this or something a bit similar might have happened to you. Imagine one morning you show up to work as you always do, and you have recently been tasked with some sort of group assignment that is now due this morning, right now. Everyone watches as your group approaches the front of the room for your presentation, but a member of your group, which is by the way super pretty, tells your group quietly that she did not do her part for the whole of the project. She tells you that she was too busy late night partying every day this week, and she just didn't have the time. Now it's all of a sudden your problem to deal with. Now, what do? On the inside, you feel like throwing her out of a window, but instead, you tell her it's okay and that it's not her fault. Or something like that, even though it clearly is. And as for the presentation, you talk to the boss or professor or whoever, and try your best to cover for your crappy group member, and tell them that you're almost finished. And then you go home and you do all her work yourself, lifting her of any responsibility. Now, although this approach is non-confrontational and might seem good enough, you ultimately feel negative towards the whole ordeal because you were not genuine, you were trying to please everyone, you were overly nice, and you only did it because she was attractive. Whereas if it were a guy, you might have gotten at least a little more confrontational than you did, and expected him to uphold his end of the assignment. These could be considered admirable traits of someone who takes the burden off of other people and takes it on as their own. But sometimes the detriment of you helping is actually greater than if you'd not helped. Let me explain. If instead of lifting responsibility from this coworker, you decided to somehow allow them to realize some sort of accountability and consequence, whether you talk to the boss beforehand or call her out on her lack of work the week prior to the presentation, or something to that effect, then not only would you have the entire presentation finished for its due date, but you would also maintain your genuineness, your confidence in your ability, and you would still be able to please everybody if everything went to plan. Now, something to keep in mind is that this more confrontational approach is not so easily said as it is done, but it will provide the most fulfillment and solve the problem almost immediately if done correctly and with due respect and reverence. There doesn't need to be hostility or passive aggressiveness when taking this approach, but just pure objectivity, logic, and respect. Because if you lash out at your partner for not doing her work, do you think she would be as likely to abide by your request than if you just asked her politely? The outcome of the latter reduces stress on your behalf, allows the deadline of the project to be fulfilled as requested, and allows the lacking member of the group to learn from the experience, and possibly prevent it from ever being an issue in future scenarios. Nobody has to see you as a bad guy just because you spoke up for yourself, and they'll actually respect you more for it. Again, as long as you handle it rationally and maturely. Just let your thoughts and concerns be known before things get worse. And if they get worse anyway, at least you tried. Stick up for yourself sometimes, and don't let yourself believe you're being unreasonable for asking someone to be reasonable or respectful. Another thing I wanted to touch on that I've been seeing nice guys doing, and that they've been called out on probably the most, is their presence in the dating scene. You've probably heard some horror stories or just know what I'm gonna say already, but when some nice guys try to initiate romance, usually on online dating platforms like Tinder or even Instagram, they seem to come off very strong straight from the get-go, and then when they usually get rejected, well, they don't handle it very well. I found a prime example of what I'm referring to pretty quickly on Reddit. Usually how these things seem to go is the guy will reach out or make his move by being super straightforward or something like that, which is something I don't completely disagree with doing because chances are that the girl already knows what you want. But there's just a certain way to do it without coming across as creepy in every conceivable way. Anyway, they'll shoot their shot like they're Devin Booker, get rejected because who would oblige some request like that to a stranger in their right mind, and then proceed to immediately retract any and all things they might have just said in the 30 seconds prior. They'll say something cute or say something about how pretty they are, and then when they get rejected, they act like they were just joking or that they didn't even want to get with them anyway. Not only does this display just how bad at taking criticism or rejection some of these people are, but it also conveys to the recipient loud and clear that even if there was a sliver of redemption for this person before, they just proved to the girl that they are not to be trusted, and that they only say what you want to hear in order to get what they want. And once they're rejected, they actually didn't mean what they said. And knowing this about them, they're not someone you would want to be in a partnership with. The nice guy wanted the reward of sex or intimacy in exchange for his compliments and praise, and when he doesn't get what he wanted, he has a tantrum. But in reality, being nice does not automatically entitle you to romance or sex or friendship. In fact, it really doesn't entitle you to anything at all, and you should give compliments and stuff like that without ever expecting anything in return. A guy who is nice, unlike a nice guy, admits to himself that he wants what he wants, gives it an earnest try, and if he is rejected, just moves on, plain and simple. I believe that delayed gratification also has a role in this, because a kind man will be patient with a woman that he wants, although his intentions are clear, while a nice guy will want it right away just so he can bust a nut. One last situation I wanted to point out regarding the nice guy is when he is already friends with the girl that he's interested in. And it's very easy to fall into this trap. So easy and common, in fact, that the term friend zone was coined only to draw more attention to this issue that a lot of people have. And it's something that both guys and girls can be vulnerable to, just to be clear. But I think it's more of a problem among guys, so I'm just gonna continue under the assumption that it is in fact a nice guy and not a nice girl. This sort of situation really encapsulates all that I've talked about prior in this video. Because if you were confident and respected yourself, you would not accept the position of being friends with a girl when the goal was to be their partner. You would ask her out. You would not only be nice to her with the hope that someday she would have sex with you, you would be genuine and honest with yourself about what you want, and try to make it happen if you really liked her. There'd be no need to butter her up all the time to get what you want out of the relationship, because she already likes you. And while this guy who is nice might not be overly nice all the time, he is nice when it matters, and loving too. He understands that being nice does not automatically entitle him to get what he wants. The kind of guy who actually gets the girl and keeps her is masculine and willing to inflict himself upon the world around him. He treats his love interest like a real human being, and that includes the good and the bad sides of her. And because of this, she recognizes that he is not just trying to get sex out of her, but that he is actually looking for a partnership built on trust and authenticity. Now, this advice might not be what you're looking for if you're just looking to hook up with strangers. And also, I realized that a lot of what I said in this video is more idealistic than it may be practical. But the main point of the video that I want to get across is that you should not be afraid to let yourself be heard. And that means talk to the girl and make yourself known to the external world. And when you talk to the girl, be genuine with yourself and her, because then the relationship will be built on trust rather than fakeness. And to be honest with her means to call her out on her BS sometimes, if she's doing something questionable. Speak up and don't let confrontation discourage you, because in the filth, it will be found. What you're afraid of doing might just be exactly what you need to do. Thank you.